Not too far in the game, and I'm already making my first topic video about something. So the first thing I really want to discuss, and it's something that's come up a lot on Twitter or in discussions in like Discord servers and something. It's a lot of people wondering if chargers are completely dead. Now, for those that are playing Splatoon 2 but haven't played the first game, in Splatoon 1, chargers like E-liter or Splatterscope were very prevalent due to their ability to one-shot from far distance. The use of an ability that was removed in Splatoon 2 called Damage Up allowed chargers like the E-liter to reduce the amount of time needed for them to be able to one-shot you. So it would basically make it so if they wore enough damage up, instead of having to charge fully to kill you, they could charge like 60% and then one-shot you. This made chargers a very strong force in the game. And for a while it was deemed that if you didn't run a charger, you were setting yourself up for failure. Chargers were just so dominating in the first game because nothing had more range than them. A scoped E-liter had the most range in the game, and that just made it a nightmare to deal with. Couple that with damage up, where it didn't even have to fully charge to kill you, and then if you got close enough, the E-liter could still tap shot you and kill you. It made chargers very dominant in the game. And it wasn't until later in the game's life that people realized that chargers aren't really that necessary in a game that's focused about turfing and keeping map control, something that chargers couldn't really contribute to. People started to play them less and less, and it became a factor of they're only useful in a few maps. But now, in Splatoon 2, damage up is completely gone, making it so chargers have to fully charge to be able to one-shot. And that has raised concerns that chargers aren't worth playing anymore. And a lot of the people that played chargers from the first game have just stepped off of the weapon and just don't have any desire to play them anymore. And I've seen it come up, and quite a few people have asked me this in my streams. Do I think that chargers are bad now? And the short answer to that is no. I don't think chargers are bad. Chargers got a change that they needed. Giving a weapon that had the most amount of range in the game the ability to one-shot and to lower that time with damage up was a huge problem. Chargers were a dominating part of the first game, and while they're not that common now, it's not because they're bad, it's because they're not dominant anymore. There is no longer that feel that you need to have a charger, otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure, like there was in the early days of the first game. The chargers don't make that big of a difference anymore, and honestly, that's fine. That's what it needed to be. It didn't need to be a dominating force. It didn't need to be a necessity. It needed to function just like every other weapon in the game. It needed to just be there as an assistant. It needed to just fill its role and not be the longest ranged option in the game. And now they're being seen as worthless because they have to fully charge. And to me that seems kind of silly because they're still okay. The kits for the chargers are still decent, not exactly the best, but they're still passable. I still think that the best charger personally is the Firefin right now, which is the one that has Splash Wall and Bomb Launcher. The Bomb Launcher allows it to contribute a lot more to map control and have an actual presence in gaining that map control or helping the team get it back. That's something the original Splatterscope could do in the first game, but people were more favorable towards the Kelp, which was the Sprinkler and Whale one. Personally, I thought the Splatterscope in the original game was the best one. That was my favorite one to play. So the Firefin just by default gets bonus points with me for having a very similar kit by having a bomb rush on it. Unfortunately, they kind of split the kit and put the Splat Bomb on the normal Splatterscope in this game, where its special is Stingray, which isn't all that good in my opinion, but if you like it, to each their own. I personally feel that the Firefin is the better charger right now, and weapons like the E-liter have an okay kit. Ink mines are not really that good. I mean, they're good for marking stuff now because they have a very large radius for that, but it's not going to really contribute to the weapon itself. And then the Inkstorm, I actually feel like Inkstorm is probably one of the better specials. It it does a decent amount of does a decent job at painting things and does apply a little damage to people. And I don't understand why a lot of people are saying that it's not worth using. Unfortunately, it also is kind of on a very limited number of weapons, most of them being not really that hot to use anyway. But I don't know. I don't think the Chargers are bad. I feel like they got a correction that needed to be made. They are no longer a necessary force. They're no longer dominant. They're just what they should have been. They are just a normal weapon, another choice to make to fit the situation. And I actually ended up calling the fact that certain weapons would get adjustments and people would react in this sort of way. Prior to the game's launch, I actually wrote up I guess a blog sort of thing, where I talked about what people should do in regards to if weapons get nerfed, and how people should, handle nerfs in the game. I titled it "Nerfs Don't Necessarily Mean Death," and it was an overview of what happened in the first game, where certain weapons received nerfs, and people just wrote the weapons off as no longer being worth playing because they got nerfed. And I wanted to write that prior to this game's release, hoping that people would read it and take that into consideration before they jump to conclusions here. But unfortunately, it seems like people have jumped, to these conclusions and have dropped these weapons because of the changes they got. Chargers are being dropped because they're no longer dominant, and rollers are being dropped because it's now harder to get the one shot, and the hitbox is a little weird. It's just, I don't know. I really hope that people wouldn't jump to conclusions as fast as they did, but we are still in the early stages of the game. Of course, it's going to be like this for probably a few more months. People right now are gravitating towards what's easiest to play and what's the quickest way to do something, rather than just trying to look for what is and will continue to be on the top. The weapons like tri-slosher are being played right now because it's easy. It might not be good in the long run, as if Nintendo actually decides to step in and do something about the weapons in the game, chances are a lot of these things won't stay good. So it's essentially what it is right now is it's what's easy, and I guess that's the best way to describe what the common weapons are right now. But I don't feel that Chargers are bad. I feel like Chargers need a new approach. They need more attention. They need to be relearned. Something has to be redone with these things. They are no longer. I've been saying it this whole video, and I feel kind of bad for it because how much I'm repeating it. But it's true. They aren't dominating anymore, and that's the biggest change. They're still good. They just can't dominate, and they can't exert a pressure they could in the first game just by existing. Now it requires more effort and more work, and now you need to make the most of your existence, your presence, and it's, I don't know. I hope that people continue to look into this. I know a lot of people are actually still playing Chargers. I know quite a few Charger players that are still doing very well, and those are the ones that I expected to do well. In fact, in our discussion video, I called one of these players and said that he would like this Charger, and sure enough, that's what he's using. So I just hope that people take more time to actually look into these things and to not write off things because of changes. In my Octobrush video, I mentioned the changes to rollers, and the comments weren't exactly favorable to where I said that the rollers got all these nerfs and yada yada yada. But it's an adaptation thing. You need to adapt to changes and get used to nerfs If a weapon you use gets nerfed, your first instinct shouldn't be to just drop it and stop playing. You should always look into it and continue to mess around with it and figure out what else you can do with it. In the write-up I made, I mentioned how people continue to play certain weapons past the nerfs they received, and the people that would still continue to do well with those weapons. Just because something got changed for maybe the better or the worse doesn't mean that it's instantly not worth playing anymore. It just means there needs to be a new approach to it. It needs to be looked at from a different angle. And if you're curious in reading what I had written up about this months back, it will be in the description. So I just want to end this by saying that I do not feel that chargers are worthless. They just need more time and people to invest more effort into them to figure out how to reapply them and how to make them work again. So, with that, I want to thank everyone for watching, and I will see you all later.